A lot of football to get to. Obviously, the Super Bowl, top of mind. Coming off the Seahawks 29-13 conquest of the New England Patriots. My shocked face, which is to say not shocked at all. Sam Yarnell and I will carry you through today. We have some Olympic talk to get to. There was the Waste Management Open out in Arizona yesterday. A wild finish in college basketball to talk about. And here's the best news of all. You ready? We're like 11 days away from the first spring training games. That's all I need. And then the World Baseball Classic is right after. Can baseball just get here? And I know there's this black cloud of doom hanging over the upcoming season because it could be the final season for a while because there could be a work stoppage after this season ends. But I'm just jazzed for baseball. Even though the Yankees didn't do anything to really improve themselves in this offseason, I am jazzed for the start of baseball season. Anyway, we will see how it all shakes out. So a lot to get to over the next 60 minutes, as I said. I'm glad to have you with us. And we start things as we always do on this Monday, time for the big story. And the big story is the Seattle Seahawks. And look, throughout this entire NFL season, we kept asking ourselves the question, who was that team? Who was the it team in the NFL? And we went back and forth. And, throughout the year, the odds makers would tell you, oh, no, Kansas City's still the team to beat. They had, the best odds to win the Super Bowl, even when they were, a game away from being eliminated from the postseason. There was Philadelphia, obviously, Super Bowl champions from a year ago. Josh Allen, the reigning Super Bowl MVP, coming back with Buffalo. What could he do? Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh with the Steelers. And when all was said and done, when you got to the end of the year, by the time, the dust settles in Santa Clara, you saw why Seattle was the best team in the NFL, why they wind up winning the Super Bowl. And look, this is not, I don't mean for this to be a beat up on the Patriots sort of segment. But we told you so. We told you so throughout the regular season. We told you so throughout the playoffs when they were beating teams like the Chargers, who had no offensive line, when they were beating teams like the Texans, when C.J. Stroud basically wet the bed. We told you when they were beating the Denver Broncos without Bo Nix. They had a glide path to this Super Bowl. There's no escaping that truth. No matter how much you might want to stick your head in the sand as a Patriots fan throughout the entire season, when all is said and done, when this season is over now, you have to look in the mirror, in the post-mortem, in the autopsy of a Super Bowl drubbing at the hands of the Seattle Seahawks. You have to look yourself in the mirror and say, we just weren't that good. And by that good, I mean to be on the level of a Super Bowl team. They had a good season. To turn things around the way Mike Vrabel did was a remarkable accomplishment. But you have to admit that it was aided by a weak schedule. You have to admit that it was aided by a playoff run where you didn't have to go through Lamar Jackson, where you didn't have to go through Josh Allen, where you didn't have to go through Joe Burrow and the Bengals, where you didn't have to go through a healthy Justin Herbert and the Los Angeles Chargers. And there's a reason why, and we're going to get to this later in the show, the odds makers, when they look ahead to 2027 Super Bowl, are not giving a lot of love to the Patriots. You'd think a team that just went to the NFL's final game of the season would be getting more love when it comes to their odds to win the Super Bowl next year, when Drake May was the runner-up for MVP. Could you imagine? Could you imagine for a moment if Drake May had won this MVP? If it wasn't Matthew Stafford that won last week at NFL Honors? If Drake May were your MVP and he put up that kind of performance? How awful it would be for the league to have your MVP in the biggest stage, the biggest spot, the most eyeballs, put up that kind of stinker? But this is who Drake May was the entire postseason. Again, sometimes we get too deep into this stuff. Sometimes 1 + 1 = 2, and 2 + 2 = 4. And the Patriots' weak schedule and glide path through the postseason, not their fault. Sometimes those things add up to the loss that many of us predicted, unless you're Stanford Steve. Another topic entirely. Look, if you want to go, and by the way, I'm not some pro sports handicapper or college sports handicapper or betting expert. But if you really looked at this matchup, there was no justification for people going on the air and saying not only that the Patriots were going to cover, but that they were going to win the game outright. There wasn't anything in the data. Calm down, Jason. I just get mad when people are loud and funny and people give them credibility and then they say, I'm going to go bet on the Patriots. Why? Because Stanford Steve told me to. And then you wind up losing your mortgage as a result. First of all, you shouldn't be betting the mortgage. If you've got like 5 mortgages paid, and then go do it. But ultimately, there wasn't anything in the data leading up to this game that should have told you take the New England Patriots. Other than homers, other than bias, other than you want to throw a couple of bucks on it just for fun, any real hard American money should not have been put on the New England Patriots in this game. And you saw why. And that's not revisionist. That's not hindsight being 2020. We told you for 2 weeks that this was what was going to happen. I said 27-16, 27-17 consistently for 2 weeks. It was 29-13. So again, not to say I told you so, but I told you so. So hopefully you tailed us and took the advice of our friend Scott Seidenberger, who was on the show last week. And if you were going to take the Seahawks, you altered them to 5.5 as opposed to 4.5. You paid less juice on it. I wonder how the sports books did too. We'll probably find that out in the coming days as well. There's a lot more to get to from this game. Sam Yarnell will join me. We'll get into that. We'll talk about everything surrounding the game, the halftime show, all of that good stuff, and look ahead to next year as well. We're coming back. Welcome back to the show. You've heard what I had to say about the Super Bowl in the big story. Let's expand the conversation. We are guest-free for the show today, which means Sam and I get to opine on a whole bunch of things related to this Super Bowl win for Seattle. 29-13 the final. I had like 27-17. It's pretty darn close, Sam Yarnell. Pretty darn close. And kudos to our friend Scott Seidenberg, who said alt up the 4.5 to 5.5, which gave me some reduced juice. Hope you tailed us on that. And look, I mean, Seattle wins. To me, and I posted this in various places today. A mid-regular season gave us a mid-Super Bowl. That's kind of how I feel about it, Sam.
Yeah, so from a betting perspective, Jason, no punt to result in a touchback in the Super Bowl. Freest bet ever. Hope you tailed it. No, it was juicy, but it made you tons of money. If that was your main play, as it was mine, I mean, you knew that Super Bowl, despite having like a bazillion punts in it, not a single one resulted in a touchback. Basically a cash machine, that bet was. Yeah, a couple of things just out of the gate I wanted to say about the Super Bowl. A couple of really cool things that I noticed, and we'll get into the nuts and bolts of it all in a second. But during the trophy presentation, after the game, you had Jody Allen, the chair for the Seahawks, being interviewed by Maria Taylor. And I sat there and thought to myself, how many times after a Super Bowl have we as sports fans watched a woman interview another woman who was just handed the Lombardi trophy? I thought that was really cool, and I thought it was like a really cool moment in women's history and for all women in sports last night at Super Bowl 60. Another cool moment between Maria Taylor and the head coach, Mike Macdonald, of the Seattle Seahawks. They were high school classmates. What a full circle moment that is, to have your high school classmate interviewing you or being interviewed or interviewing your high school classmate, I guess, after the Super Bowl. It was such a cool moment to see, and just a couple of those little moments that we get from these big sports events that we put on every year that just make you feel a little more connected from a human element to this multi-trillion-dollar operation that is the NFL. So I thought that was very cool last night out in San Francisco, Jason. But you said it. I thought your tweet was apt. It was very well put. We got a mid-Super Bowl from a mid-season. And I think that one of the themes that a lot of people are talking about this morning, and we can get more into on the show, is there's a clear and obvious change that's happening in the way the sport of football is played right now at the National Football League level. And that is now we're looking at 2 straight years where the far and away best defense in football won the Super Bowl, essentially on the heels of that defense and riding that defense to the Lombardi. It feels like there's a power dynamic shift, Jason, in the NFL right now, right as all these quarterbacks are starting to get paid these insane amounts of money. They're becoming less and less important to overall team success.
Here's the thing. And I'm not pouring cold water on what you're saying, because I think there is certainly a modicum of truth to what you're pointing out here. But, you know, as much as we talk about the path for the Patriots to the Super Bowl and them being a product of a weak regular season schedule, and then, you know, C.J. Stroud wetting the bed, no Joe Alt and the offensive line banged up for the Chargers, Bo Nix being out for the Broncos, as much as we talk about that, I mean, let's face it, the Seattle Seahawks, their last 2 games, got the 49ers, who were a mash unit the entire season and in the playoffs, and then a Patriots team that was clearly overmatched and didn't belong in this game. The biggest point to me is you would have gotten a better Super Bowl had you had Denver or Buffalo in this game. And frankly, I think Buffalo might have been the best challenge to watch them try to shut down Josh Allen, who wouldn't get rattled in those spots. That, to me, is sort of is the best argument. I don't know if 2 years in a row of defenses doing what we saw the Eagles do last year and the Seahawks did this year. I'm not 100% there with you yet that there's this titanic shift, that the tectonic plates of the NFL are shifting in such a way that everybody better throw away their zillion-dollar quarterbacks and go invest in a defense. I'm not sure I'm there yet, but it is interesting to see that 2 years in a row that is sort of the trend that is played out.
Well, and you look at the conference championships, right? And there's a deeper level of research into this. And off the top of my head, I think it's been at least 3 years since a top 10 fantasy. I know that's a weird way to qualify statistics, but for all purpose statistics in this exercise, I think it's fair enough. I think it's been at least 3 years since a top 5 fantasy quarterback won the Super Bowl. That just says to me that you don't need, look at the quarterbacks that were in the freaking conference championships this year, assuming Bo Nix didn't get injured, right? Bo Nix, Drake May, Sam Darnold, Matthew Stafford. I think coming into the season, you'd be very lucky if somebody had one of those guys in any top 10 quarterbacks list. And I think that's probably a stretch. It's just become very clear and apparent to me that you do not need a franchise quarterback. You do not need a $60 million a year quarterback to win championships in this league right now.
If you have as stout a defense as we saw with Philadelphia last year, which was the right recipe against sort of a meh, Chiefs offensive line, which was kind of meh all year. If you have, again, the combination of second year quarterback, overwhelmed by the moment, that was clear and obvious. Everybody, my God, could you imagine if Drake May had won the MVP and put up that kind of performance yesterday in the Super Bowl? Oh my God, thank God he didn't win the MVP. That the NFL would have had that guy on its biggest stage, wetting the bed the way he did in that game. And I get it, his offensive line let him down. They were all over him all day, but he made bad decisions. And that was the theme throughout the entire postseason for Drake May, Sam. So I don't know why anybody's shocked that he showed up in the Super Bowl. I hear Dave Portnoy yesterday. He has to be hurt. He has to be hurt. No, this is who he was the entire postseason, you dope. What are you talking about?
Stop. Yeah, you're listening to Patriots fans. See, you can't listen to Patriots fans about these things. Listen, with regard to the Drake May MVP thing, I think it's heinous that he was as close to winning the award as he was. I know that Diana Rossini is a great friend of the show, and I love all the work that she does. I think it's absolutely patently ridiculous to get as many votes for MVP as he did. I think, quite frankly, there is now a better argument that Justin Herbert should have won the MVP than Drake May, and they were both guys who got first place votes for the award. Drake May had the worst postseason run by EPA we have ever seen in football. Worse than the corpse of Peyton Manning 11 years ago in 2015. It was just bad. They got quarterback problems in New England. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, nobody will want to say that coming off the year that he did. We have more to get to. By the way, Jason Myers, nice game as well. We're coming back. Welcome back to the show. Breaking down everything that happened at the Super Bowl. Coming up in 10 minutes. It's never too early to look ahead to 2027. The 2027 Super Bowl in Los Angeles, where we will be the world's longest tease, the 51-week tease. We will be on Media Row next year for the Super Bowl. Who will be in that game? Sam and I will talk about that coming up in about 10 minutes and have a ridiculous conversation that we have no chance at being right about. But we will get to it nonetheless. Oh, Sam thinks he does. All right, Sam, let's talk about everything, that sort of enveloped this day yesterday. And it was, obviously there's Bad Bunny, who you see there on the screen, but there was Green Day in the pregame, who I thought sounded actually really good. Billy Joe Armstrong could still hit the notes there. So I thought that was pretty cool. The typical pomp and circumstance that comes with the game. They had the old Super Bowl champions there and them coming out of, I don't know what that little house was, that little traveling caravan thing.
That was crazy. They were spawning in the middle of the field.
Yes, that was kind of odd. But you had that. I thought, Charlie Puth did a nice job on the anthem. Hope you took the under. I think it was about 10 seconds under, 9 seconds under. It was like 151, I think, was the number, and 159. And yeah, why are you looking at me funny?
I don't know. I didn't see that bet. I didn't see any sports books carrying that bet. I think that might have been a Las Vegas special.
Yeah. No, it was out there. You had to go look for it, but it was out there. It was the 159.5. He was like 151, so that was fine. And again, we can get into the halftime show. I thought the commercial, man, I look forward to the commercials every year. Other than the Dunkin' Donuts commercial, there were not many laugh out loud moments. And again, it really just all encapsulates what was just sort of this season in the NFL of just, okay. And look, the legal rebound, I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, that's it, the league's done. Everybody will forget about this and we'll go into next year and the league will be as popular as ever. And, whatever trend takes hold next year in the league will take hold. But man, it just felt like everything surrounding this game, other than the halftime show. And look, it's subjective. We could agree to disagree. I'm not talking about from the political context. I'm just talking about from a pure entertainment value. I couldn't understand a damn word Bad Bunny said. I don't care. I was still really entertained. The choreography, the videography. I always marvel, Sam. I always marvel at how they're able, in live time, this isn't edited, how in real time they're able to capture every angle at every moment. The people directing those Super Bowl halftime shows, I know sometimes they do win Emmys. They should win one for just the visual that was that halftime show yesterday. But I thought the commercials largely sucked. A lot of people blew a lot of money on a lot of ads that were not memorable to me at all. There were several times I turned to my husband, who works in marketing, and said to him, will you go and shop for that brand or remember that brand based on that ad? And he'd look at me and go, no. That's what I found myself saying so many times.
Yeah, the ads were horrible. I didn't like any. The one that I liked was the Budweiser one, which was awesome. They do such a great job with the bald eagle landing on the Clydesdale horse, that rocked. There were like multiple that you could tell were AI like developed. It was like hard to watch. Couple of, is the Green Day concert? It was great. I'm not like cool. I thought he sounded good too. Is that new? I don't remember them doing a pregame full stage concert on the field. I don't remember that. Is that new?
I don't remember. I thought they've done them outside the stadium.
That's what I said, like in the parking lot or something. But I don't ever remember them being on like with a full stage on the sideline. I thought that was crazy.
Yeah.
But it was great. I did like how that performance was great. The America the Beautiful was amazing. Charlie Puth did a great job. Those of us who love flyovers, the flyover was absolutely sick.
Flyover was amazing.
The flyover was great. It sucked that NBC kind of botched the shooting of the flyover, but there were some insane videos on social media of that flyover that absolutely rocked. And the halftime show was outstanding. I literally, a little bit different for me, right? I did understand everything that Bad Bunny was saying. I have spoken Spanish since I was a very, very little kid. So that kind of music is one that is somewhat familiar to me. However, I was always more of an Ozuna guy growing up. But all that said, I love Bad Bunny's music. I think he did an incredible job performing. I thought, what'd you say?
I said Benito.
Oh, I thought that all of the different elements that he there was a very fine line that he had to walk, and he did an incredibly graceful job walking down that line the entire performance. I didn't think it was too much one way or another. No. And I thought that he did an incredible job, like in this incredibly difficult time that we find ourselves in, no matter who you are. He did an insane job of just bringing everybody together. Like whether you understood the music, whether you didn't understand the music, you were dancing in your living room and enjoying the show. And like, that's what it's all about. And I thought it was great.
Yep. I was tapping my feet to it. Gasolina. But I please don't come after me for like trademark or anything like that. That was the only song that I kind of got into. Lady Gaga, terrific. I mean, I could watch her sing the phone book and I'd be okay with it. She was cool. I have to say something though. I didn't know that. I had to do like a 5 times over and check social media to know that was Ricky Martin. Whew. Wow.
Good looking guy. Good looking fella.
Well, he had a lot of work done. Let's just call it what it is, man.
Good work. Good work, whoever did it.
That's a lot of work.
I was watching the game with my girlfriend, and I turned to her and I said, that is one handsome gentleman right there. I also, another thing from that performance, that couple got actually married.
Yes, thank you.
That's awesome.
Yes, they actually got married.
They invited Bad Bunny to their wedding, and he was like, no, come get married at the Super Bowl.
Yes, that was cool. Pedro Pascal had a cameo on the stage during the show. And I'm sitting there saying, how do they get this all out onto the field in the few minutes that Maria Taylor and the guys at halftime are sitting there breaking down? It blows my mind what they are able to do. I'm telling you, the behind-the-scenes stuff on those halftime shows is simply amazing. All right, is it too early to talk about next year's Super Bowl? Because there is one number in Vegas that might shock a lot of Patriots fans when they hear about it as it relates to the odds to win next year's Super Bowl. We will get to that. We've still got the Olympics to talk about. U.S. has its first couple of gold medals. We'll get into that. Odds and ends still to come. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to do on this Monday edition of Sports Wrap. All right, halfway home on this Monday edition of the show. Bill Bender tomorrow on the show for some bracketology, college basketball style. We got a college basketball nugget to throw in before the end of the show. A gem from the weekend. But Sam Yarnell, one more NFL segment. Because it's never too early to look ahead at where we're going to be a year from now. Who will be the Super Bowl winner in 2027 at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles? Never too early to take a peek ahead. And I was kind of surprised when I clicked on FanDuel last night after the game and I had to click the more category to find the New England Patriots in odds to win the Super Bowl next year. And it was like, woof, smell, talk about cold water in the face. They got some last night when the odds makers basically said, we're not really taking you that seriously to win the Super Bowl next year. Now, that being said, what were the Seahawks, 60-1? The Patriots, something like that. What were their odds this year to win the Super Bowl before the season started? I don't remember exactly what the number was,
like
but it was
60-1 some places, 80-1 others. The Patriots were like closer to 100-1.
Yeah, I mean, so you never know. But when you look at the odds for next year's Super Bowl, for those who are feeling anxious and want to throw some money down on something related to the NFL, it is the Seahawks leading the way, plus 750. The best odds to win the Super Bowl next year. The Los Angeles Rams come in at second at plus 800. And then it's the Ravens at 12-1 along with the Bills. The Packers at 13-1. The Chargers coming in at 15-1 along with the Eagles. The Lions at 16-1. The Chiefs at 16-1. And then the Patriots at 17-1 coming off a trip to the Super Bowl, Sam Yarnell. They are 17-1. Surprising or not?
Well, not at all. Not in the slightest. I mean, and you heard it last night, right? People were saying it all over the internet. The nickname, the schedule for Drake May is going to stick for a very, very long time. And if it doesn't go well next year, the schedule may stick even longer because that schedule is going to be brutal next year, playing a first place one. What I think is very interesting around the betting landscape, and me diving into all these markets last night, right when they opened up, and this morning. I have to go back and do my research today and tomorrow. I believe it's the first time, at least since the repeal of PAPSA, you have both teams from the previous year's Super Bowl not favored to win their own division. I think that speaks volumes to what you were saying earlier in the show about mid-season, mid-level football, mid-teams in the Super Bowl, and a mid-Super Bowl itself, right? The sports books agree with you, right? That's why the Patriots are, quite frankly, very heavy dogs to win the AFC East next year, and the Seattle Seahawks are very slight dogs to win the NFC West. I want to say it's like 5 cents, and the Patriots are like 20-cent dogs to win that division against the Bills. I think, Jason, it speaks to kind of the turnover that we're seeing in the NFL right now, right? I'll go back to my point. Conference championships. Take the 4 teams in the conference championships this year, compared to the 4 teams in the conference championships last year. There's not one that's the same. So there's turnover galore going on in the NFL right now. And that's why, again, and I say this every year, if it's the day after the Super Bowl or the day after the league year ends for any league, and you're going to look to bet somewhere, there is no way, no chance that you should be taking a 5-1 or a 12-1 or even an 18-1. You need to look down the board if you're placing a Super Bowl bet today.
I think what the Seahawks have here, though, is repeatable. But then again, we also thought the Philadelphia Eagles was repeatable, but that was also a highly combustible situation, even in the year they won the Super Bowl. So, I'm less surprised that the Eagles didn't wind up back there. But I think what the Seahawks have here is very repeatable.
It's a good point. I think that the Seahawks will need to be wary of the same thing the Eagles were, right? The Eagles lost coordinators, lost Kellen Moore to the head coaching job in New Orleans, and you saw that unit fall off of a cliff. I mean, off of a cliff. Now, speaking of Cliff, not really, but speaking of Clint, the Seahawks will now need to be careful of not letting that exact same thing happen to their team. They're losing Clint Kubiak to go be the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. They need to make sure they don't do what the Eagles do and let that unit fall off after their coordinator leaves.
I'm surprised the Chargers have the 3rd best odds. I wonder how much of that is Mike McDaniel. I really do. I wonder how much of that is adding him to the mix for next season, because the Chargers at plus 700 to come out of the AFC, that's surprising to me.
I think it's a combination of a couple of things. I think that from a sportsbook perspective, right, the Chargers seem like the very clear and obvious favorite in the AFC West, and I'm not sure it's particularly close. You're going to have Bo Nix coming back on that ankle. Is he even going to be ready for like OTAs and stuff? I don't know if they've said that yet. Regardless, that's a big injury for a mobile quarterback, right? He's going to be coming off of that. Obviously, I think not only is Mahomes probably not going to start the season, the shine has kind of come off of the Kansas City Chiefs and the dynasty that was there for a very brief moment. And I don't think the sportsbook is ready to believe that the Las Vegas Raiders, even with Fernando Mendoza and Clint Kubiak, are going to be ready to compete. So to me, that's the best way of being able to justify it. But Jason, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I agree with it. It's the Los Angeles Chargers, Jim Harbaugh, perennial postseason choker, right? Like,
yeah. Houston, by the way, 10-1.
You want to ask me for my bet now to win the Super Bowl next year? Because I got one for you.
Go ahead. You got 30 seconds.
Jason, I'm going to go down the board, as I am wont to do with this market.
Yeah.
The Las Vegas Raiders are going to win the Super Bowl next year. Give me the Raiders 125-1. Fernando Mendoza, Ashton Genty. I love that team.
It's almost as bad as Stanford Steve picking the Patriots to win the Super Bowl. We're coming back. Welcome back to the show. Continue the conversation. 10 minutes from now, it's odds and ends to wrap things up. Sam Yarnell, the Winter Olympics continue in Milan. All over Italy, for that matter. I watched the opening ceremony, which they did in like a bunch of different venues. It was kind of cool. And by the way, talk about great performances. We talked about, Bad Bunny and the halftime show. And again, it's all subjective. I've made it a point to say this for years. You could put 10 people in a room, have them watch this show. 5 will love it, 5 will hate it. That's the nature of what we do for a living. Media, entertainment, all of these things. Very highly subjective. One thing is not subjective. Andrea Bocelli makes the difficult look easy every time. That dude opens his mouth and just beautiful things come out of it. Musically speaking. Just fantastic. I watched him at the opening ceremonies last week. I watched it live, actually, because they show it again at night, the NBC version, but I watched it live on USA with Terry Gannon sort of talking about the festivities. And man alive, Andrea Bocelli. I mean, they always say the great ones make it look easy in sports. The great ones make it look easy singing, too. The guy looks like no effort goes into it, and just the sound that comes out of his mouth, amazing. The Olympics well underway. They were already underway before the opening ceremonies, which I always think is funny. They go and say, "Oh, the Olympics have officially begun." No, they officially began like 3 days earlier. But they've already ended for Lindsey Vonn, and this was just heartbreaking to watch. First of all, the amazing idea that she was able to put herself back on the slope after rupturing her ACL. I don't know how you're able to pivot and do the things that she's doing at this high rate of speed going downhill in her 40s with a ruptured ACL. Nonetheless, she was doing it. And then 13 seconds into her run on Sunday, absolute disaster strikes. There it is, with her pole clipping a gate as she was coming around, and she goes airborne. She fractures her leg. They have to airlift her off the mountain. It's not like you could just, roll a cart out there and roll her off the hill. They had a helicopter. I mean, the drama. It was so quiet on that hill, you could hear a pin drop, Sam. So she's done, obviously, for these Olympics. Just heartbreak for her and that downhill team, which still then winds up winning gold, which is amazing unto itself. Who knows, inspired by her effort out there, Sam. Talk about the skiing first, and then we'll get to the figure skating. But just heartbreak when you watch Lindsey Vonn and what took place. It was. Shout out to Breezy Johnson, by the way.
Yes. I mean, Breezy Johnson coming through. Incredibly sad. Unfortunately, I was awake watching it because it was Super Bowl Sunday, and, the life of us, you got to work all the time. It was so heartbreaking. I think that, this is one that, you don't think that she's going to come back from a career sense, and that's okay. Lindsey Vonn will still go down as one of the greatest downhill skiers of all time. And, Jason, I think that there's a conversation that you and I have, somewhat frequently on the show of like, and I know it's hard to answer this question from an athlete's perspective, and we never know, despite however many David Aardsmas and Nick Fergusons we can talk to. But what, why? That's just, why? Why? I don't understand. I get it.
Why what?
It's the Olympics. You get it you get a chance once every 4 years, but you get injured in this way, and you have such the legacy that Lindsey Vonn does. There's just a part of me, and it's the reason I'll never be an athlete anywhere near that caliber. But I just don't understand why you still want to go out and push yourself to the ultimate limit when you know that, this is something that could happen. It could end your, skiing career entirely.
Well, it's that competitive. I mean, look, it's Tiger Woods, shredded his knee and won a U.S. Open on it. I mean, and I'm sure there had to be people sitting there going, you may cause permanent damage by going out there and doing this. And Tiger still went out there and bested Rocco Mediate, to win one of the most memorable. I mean, it's the difference between greatness and immortality is what Tiger did in that U.S. Open. And Lindsey Vonn, I think even despite the injury, because the injury, the ruptured ACL had nothing to do with her getting hurt. She had run a couple of practice runs prior to this with the ruptured ACL, and I think she was pretty good from what I recall. It's just that competitive spirit, and I think it was the idea that this was the final time, and all the work that went into preparing for this final run for her obviously had a lot to do with it. Real quick, I don't want to give short shrift to the U.S. figure skating squad. The quad god Ilya Malinin, fantastic. Did his thing on the slopes, did his thing on the ice. And he wasn't even as good as he could have been. And the U.S. still wins team gold at the Olympics, Sam. We've still got plenty of hockey to get to. There's the women's team, which has been, basically spit stomping their opponents so far. We'll have the men's ice hockey still to come as well. So there's a lot to still sort of ingest at these Olympic Games. I'm not fully engrossed in it yet.
Yeah, they got the timing of this wrong. I don't know who the Olympic Committee or whatever. We got to rework the timing of this event. It just feels misplaced. I don't know. I couldn't put my finger on it exactly why. It just feels like it. No one knows it's going on somehow.
All right, we got odds and ends around the corner. You're not going to want to miss it next. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Monday. Tomorrow on the show, Bill Bender talks college hoops. Yes, he does that too for the sporting news. Bill Bender will be with us. Do some bracketology. My UConn Huskies lost to St. John's over the weekend. Feels like there's a real dividing line, though. You have the top 5 or 6 teams in the country, and then feels like there's a bit of a drop off there where there's a lot of parity. Doesn't mean one of those teams can't come out of the pack, but certainly something we'll talk about with Bill Bender. Couple of reminders before we go. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Make sure to go and subscribe to it. You can listen to the show Monday through Friday, early every afternoon, 45 minutes. Go and subscribe to that. Works great as an audio companion if you're driving to work on the treadmill, at the gym, wherever you may be. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. This is the place for all things Sports Wrap with Jason Page. The Monday through Friday TV version of the show, available there before it's available anywhere else. Go and subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. Sports Wrap Shorts available there as well. 1 to 3 minute long vertical videos. These are the top stories of the day as they're breaking, so you don't have to wait until we get on the air the next day. Top stories there, the top games in sports, we have them covered for you with Sports Wrap Shorts. Sports Wrap Shorts also available on our TikTok, Sports Wrap Jason Page, and on our Instagram, You guessed it, Sports Wrap Jason Page. And without any further delay, on this fantastic, wonderful, beautiful Monday edition of the show, it's time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell, the Waste Management Open. Chris Goddard is your winner in an event that will be remembered as much for some YouTuber, TikToker punk who's out there, harassing players or paying people to harass players and say things in their backswing. Jack Doherty is his name. A guy who's so brave, by the way, to do the things he does that he walks around with a bodyguard who's the size of an NFL linebacker. God, I wish I came across this punk just once. I really do. And he got banned for life, by the way. Good job by the PGA Tour. Banning him for life from going to any other PGA Tour events after the crap he pulled. But you have Hideki Matsuyama, who basically implodes in the final round, especially late. He's got guys yelling in his backswing while he's putting. He's got guys yelling in his backswing on the playoff when he's trying to drive the golf ball. It gets eerily quiet when Chris Goddard is out there, though. Just a terrible look at the Waste Management Open. But congratulations to Chris Goddard, a winner on the PGA Tour again, Sam.
Yes, nothing like the wasted management. Listen, yeah, the Jack Doherty thing, I'm not going to waste my time with that. He's like a loser who gets his pockets lined by like 8 and 12-year-olds. I don't really care. That's not, I'll tell you this, it's not a long-term business plan the Doherty Incorporated has going on over there. We'll just say that. Shout out to Little Silver, New Jersey's own Chris Goddard, another outstanding performance. I'll tell you, man, in it was like the last third of the season last year, and he's carried it into this year. Chris Goddard is lighting the freaking world on fire in golf right now. And yes, it is as much, you're right, about Hideki's choke over the course of... It's not even really the last day, Jason. It started on Saturday, and it was bad. It was on the back nine for him on Saturday, and he just could not get his head right from there after... You feel for Hideki, but he's a guy who's been around. You trust him to get things right. Chris Goddard is up and coming in the PGA right now. This guy might be the next Scotty challenger.
Say this as well. For Scotty, he was dead and buried after the first round. He finished tied for third. I mean, he's just amazing. Like, he actually was in the mix in this thing on Sunday after being awful in the early parts of the tournament. Give me a little bit of college basketball. Seth Trimble, the game winner just before time expired, North Carolina fans. Don't storm the court. No, don't do it. It was almost a game winner at the buzzer. They had to clear the court. Then Duke got another opportunity. They couldn't get the bucket. Good win for North Carolina against number 4 Duke. By the way, are we okay with court storming when a number 14 team beats a number 4? I know they're a hated rival. I know
it's UNC Duke.
But
stop it right now. It is UNC Duke. It is the most famous rivalry in college basketball. It is a top 3 most famous rivalry in North American sports. It is yes, you can storm. I don't care if one of those teams. I don't care if you're a ranked team beating an unranked team. You can storm the court in UNC Duke, no matter when, no matter where, no matter who beats who. Court storming always allowed in that rivalry specifically. I think that it was hilarious that they had to spend more time cleaning up the court than they actually did playing the game after they cleaned up the court. That's always funny. And I was watching this game live, and there was a part of me, as there had to have been a part of lots of these North Carolina fans, that thought, wow, Duke's really going to win this game, aren't they? It's going to be that stupid Duke magic, and they're going to just tip one in from 130 feet, and we're going to go to overtime. I don't know, man. This game had everything in it. Yeah. You had to watch it. You had to be there. But it was a magical finish, Jason. You are right about that one.
Seth Trimble took 1 3 in the game, and he made it.
Nails.
There you go. That's all you can ask for.
As Bill Raftery would say.
Absolutely. That's going to wrap it up for us on this Monday edition of the show. Thanks to you, Sam Yarnell. Thanks to all of you at home for watching. Again, we'll do some college basketball talk on the show tomorrow and every week for the remainder of the season with Bill Bender of the Sporting News. Until Tuesday, I'm Jason Page. That's your Sports Wrap. We'll see you later.